So I'm having a coffee and I was just thinking, I mean, think back, January 2022, when we learned that Russia is about to do this. It's happening. It's just not them trying to rattle the saber. They're going into Ukraine. Imagine if someone back then told you that in 2025, Ukraine would have won the most impressive battles in the war, Kiev, Kherson, Kharkiv, and Kursk. And Russia would have been forced to fall back with the Black Sea Fleet to avoid being annihilated by Ukraine. That Russian tanks would be sending turrets into orbit because they couldn't handle being hit by tiny, tiny drones. That Russia itself would have been invaded, and Russia did not have the means or capacity to throw out the Ukrainians from Russian soil. That Russian oil production would have been reduced by 20% because, Ukrainian drones would blow everything up. That Russia would not be able to shoot down missiles provided to Ukraine by the West. And that Russia would spend 80,000 troops taking a small town like Bakhmut, and that is according to Prigozhin. And Prigozhin, that there was a coup attempt, that Russian mercenaries would march on Moscow and gun down helicopters and take prisoners of war along the way and be a threat to Putin's regime. And because of sanctions, we would see shit-geysers erupt within Russian cities, taller than, buildings, multi-story buildings, shit-geysers that would shoot up into the air well above multi-story buildings. Who would have believed that in January 2022? No one. No one would have believed it. So, who has impressed us the most in this war? Ukraine or Russia? Russia. There is just no way you can say that Russia has been impressive in this war. From the time they began the proper assault on Avdiivka, to now, it's been 14 months. And in 14 months, between Avdiivka to Shevchenko, south of Pokrovsk, Russia has occupied a territory roughly almost slightly smaller than the country of Luxembourg, right? The tiny, tiny nation in the middle of Europe. In 14 months, Russia has not been able to invade and conquer Luxembourg. And in that time, they have lost more hardware than they lost during the battle for Stalingrad in World War II. And speaking of World War II and Luxembourg, Germany invaded Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Belgium in 20 days. And in those 20 days, they also managed to defeat the French and British armies within Belgium. 20 days to roll through Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Belgium, and defeat France and the UK on the ground in Belgium. And Russia is struggling to, occupy a territory the size of Luxembourg. And 14 months, and they have gained about 60 kilometers. That's quite an achievement, with shit-geysers on top of that. And Russian railroads continue to have issues. They can't get their locomotives to work properly, and they are short of staff. They need like 2,000 or 3,000 guys to work to maintain the railroads and the trains properly, and they just aren't around. And this is, of course, affecting everything in Russia, since Russia is large and relies heavily on the railroads to keep things working. I mean, it's amazing. It's just amazing. And butter is a massive commodity in Russia. We have heard the news that Russians are stealing butter from the stores because the prices has skyrocketed for butter. It's just hilarious. And I can't even... There's so much stuff to talk about, to point out just what a disaster this has been for Russia. It's a shit show. I mean, a bunch of clowns are in charge of Russia and the Russian military. It's just insane. There's just no way you can say that this has been a smooth ride for Russia. Right? You have to agree that Ukraine has gone above and beyond in defending its territory, and Ukraine has been bitch slapping Russia from day one. Now, there might be some Vatniks that want to point out that, it's not Russia versus Ukraine. Ukraine actually has the support of 50 countries. Yeah, yeah, sure. But I mean, they have received 50 Leopard 2s and 30 Abrams and 20 F-16s. How many Abrams has the US produced? 9,000? How many hundreds of Leopard 2s are around in Europe? How many thousands of F-16s are flying in NATO armies, or air forces rather? And Ukraine has received 30 tanks, a couple of hundred infantry fighting vehicles. What is it? A handful of Patriot missile systems. It's not exactly as if Russia is fighting the entirety of NATO here. They're fighting a, very courageous and by now a very experienced Ukrainian army that was at the beginning of the war third rate, and the army is struggling. The Ukrainian army is still struggling with the command decisions, so it's still not a tier 1 army by any means, apart from the soldiers having a lot of hard-earned experience. So, what the? It's no, But so this army that is struggling to keep itself together has received a tiny portion of all the firepower available to NATO and Western allies, and that has been enough to bitch slap Russia back to the Stone Age in quite spectacular fashion. I mean, there's no other way to view it. How the hell can you be pro-Russian and go, yeah, those shit-geysers, that's proof that things are all right in Russia, and losing 20% of oil production? Yeah, that's a sign that things are going great for Russia. And barely able to conquer territory that equals Luxembourg in 14 months. Yeah, that's really showing those Ukrainians who's the boss. They're not able to fight back or put up a proper defense at all. Yeah, 60 kilometers in 14 months. That's it's not blitzkrieg. It's Schneckenkrieg, snail war. Not lightning war, snail war, Schneckenkrieg, right? I mean, this is if you think Russia is badass awesome, I mean, you're not living in the real world. You are living in an alternate reality. You are, in fact, the geopolitical version of a flat earther. I mean, you know what a flat earther is, right? You understand the concept that a otherwise rational person might believe something completely ludicrous. If you are a fan of Russia, that's who you are. If you think Russia is doing well in this war, you are a flat earther, but the geopolitical version, basically. I mean, I'm sorry, but no, it's just stupid. Russia, Jesus Christ, what a shit show.